all set. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the regular Board of Finance meeting. It's Monday, September 19th. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:13. We'll start by having everyone introduce themselves, beginning on my right, please.
Kevin Moffett.
Kevin McNabola.
John Cifarelli, Finance Director.
Jim Leahy.
Ajit Jain.
Kevin Houlihan, thank you. Item number 3, public dialogue. Since there's no one here, we will move on to item number 4, Amity update. Mr. Leahy.
Okay, I'm filling in for Joe Nuzzo, who had a prior engagement down in Newport. And he's asked me to fill in. So what I did is I put together some slides. So why don't we just get into it and blow through them, okay? So two things. This next item on the agenda, Vice Chairman's report, and some of them often are similar stuff. I've already handed out to all of you, and Deb, I didn't give you one, so violation on me. Did you take one of those? This document right here, okay, it came out in the middle of July. I didn't really check it out deeply until this weekend. And what it was, if you remember, in background, a year ago I asked, there seems to be an issue at Amity with a budget for medical and dental, right? We've all seen that in our discussions and in materials they send out. And then they have in the Word document claims, and they have a budget for claims. And then they were saying, okay, there's a relationship between the two. There are a number of factors that balance the two. I said, well, great. But what's happened in the last year is that rather than it being a couple 100,000 different, it was like 800,000 difference. Why not give us more information? Okay? This is the document that we received, or I received anyway, among others. I may have sent it out to you, some of you. I can get it to you, all right? But what I figured I would do and save all of you 5 or 6 the time, and anybody at home, is, and you can read the summary notes, but basically what I have here are the charts and observations on the charts, and you guys can have observations on the charts too, okay? So here's what I do want to spend is, a minute a chart to your, if you want to spend more time, fine. Minute a chart to review what I saw, what I'm hearing. This chart starts looking at, on the left-hand side, what the amount of money is. So that's the blue and the green. Sorry about that, team. The blue and the green lines up at the top. So what you're seeing is you got the medical and dental budget in the blue, and then you have the actual claims in the green. So clearly what you see is whatever the year is, and they have the years here, but I happen to know that this was 16 and 17, where there was $1 million difference between the medical budget and the actual claims, okay? And what they did is they tracked that over time, and they had as much data as they could identify when they presented this chart. The bottom number talked about the members, so they're using the right-hand side of the scale, so I learned, and they're talking about how many participants there were in the medical account and the dental account. Now, medical is obviously going to have more impact in the claims, and that's what they're mentioning there. So I don't know is how much time to spend on this, but I wanted at least this team to have the benefit of what I had read in here, so you can add to that as you go on the path forward, and we together on the path forward as we understand these differences. All right, are we good on this chart? Kev, I'll use you as a guide, and anybody else. Kev,
Yep.
Make sure we're
Yep.
good on 2 sides. Thank
Yep.
you. The next chart, best I understand it, okay, talks about the members. Now, I didn't, as you copy over to the hand copy that you have there, I only copied on the chart on the screen that people at home will see, is the left-hand side, because that seemed to me to be the most germane, because the right-hand side was dental. So let's look at this chart. What I on this chart to be, I was a little confused until I realized that if I drew a line under family, where it comes down the fourth one down, I started noticing that there were kind of the same things underneath. So then I went back to the numbers to see if I could figure it out on my own. And what the sense of it I got was this, because as you read the words, that the blue is individual, all right, if you look at the blue. And what you're noticing is that they're having more and more medical coverage, more by individual than by two-person or family, okay? Now, that might say to me, you're only covering one rather than two or five or whatever it is, so maybe the claims would be less. Don't know, but I wanted you to at least have the benefit of what I have at least been able to understand from that chart.
So
Okay?
Jim, that would probably venture to say that the reason why it's a single is probably there's been a high influx of incoming teachers or new teachers.
That's what
that
she says in the body copy
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
that are coming in on the plan as singles.
Yeah.
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 Or
Yeah.
the partners or have their own insurance.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then there's the whole PPO, and they're shifting over the HDHP, and someone more versed in medical
Yep.
will sit. But I wanted to give you the benefit of that, okay? Next one, and this gets into what I would say is more of the meat of the issue, and both on the screen, but here probably even the hand copy might be easier to read. I think I highlighted a couple of things, so what you have is a copy of some of my highlights, I think. Certainly what you can see, and I think what would be useful for me to come out of screen mode on this one and boost up the thing so that people on the screen at home will have a better shot at understanding what we're looking at. There we go. Okay. So what you see in the top line is medical and dental budget. That's for sure, right? And you can see the numbers hover plus or minus 4 million, I guess you could say. Then you can see in the line underneath that, underneath the yellow, a line across is the budgeted claims, and you can see that what they have now budgeted for claims, right? Now, my understanding is there's other things here that people would be more than well-versed than I to understand. So, I mean, I would ask my questions in areas like this so I could understand what the definitions are. But you can certainly see employee contributions, retiree contributions, whatever grant contributions are. But certainly down at the bottom, you see the actual claims. So one thing you could do quickly, that's what I did, is I said, oh, it was in 17 and 18 that the budgeted claims were $4,493,000, you know, and the actual claims was 3.2. Now, obviously, this is pre-COVID, right? So you can then say, oh, okay, if you want to just get a sense of budgeted claims and actual claims, there's your two lines. That's what it said to me. And I take a peek at how many members on medical and dental and that kind of thing. And there's your drop of 25. I said earlier it was 16 and 17. I was wrong. It was 17, 18, as we can see by the data. But one thing struck me over on the right-hand side, and I'd be wanting to slow this item down just for a peek, is I don't understand what reserve funding of a negative $380,070 means. So that would be if I happened to be at the Amity Finance Committee or someone was asking me a question, or if I was talking to Terry Loomis, this would a question I would be. And my sense is it was money either moved out of or into the reserve fund.
That's correct.
That would make sense.
Well, which is it?
Another one.
Yeah,
Yeah, the calculation.
since it's a negative, I think that they're using some of the reserve because it got too big.
Okay.
I don't know, but that's how as they're reducing the expense side, I think they funded it, decided to use up some of
Right.
that reserve because they had. How high did they get actually? Were they up to 25% at one point?
So in order to cover the actual claim, well, they don't have an actual claims in that box there, so that makes it a little weird.
Yeah, we don't know if they needed it or not.
We
Yeah.
won't get that actual number until probably the end of this month, I think.
Okay, all right, so.
Yeah, it's pretty likely that
What it
they
is
did
then
exceed.
for us,
Yeah.
a framework of understanding from which we could ask questions if so desired. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the only time you'd use a reserve fund.
Okay.
Is to cover claims that are
Okay.
over budget.
Yeah, so if they didn't go over budget, then they never might have touched that 380.
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come back in, but yeah, no,
Yep.
it's,
All right, the last one, and I'll go back to full screen on the next one. Thank you. And this is the last one under medical and mental. And this one, let's go through the data. Total budget, first line. Actual expenses, second line. Within the total budget was the claims budget and also claims actual. That's not in a budget, but within the total budget was the claims budget. Then they say, okay, budget for other accounts. So not having the Excel file, my assumption is that that would be the total budget minus the claims budget. So if it ends in a 300, and it does, it's this 46,902, 300, Kevin, minus this 4485, right? I don't have the Excel, but we can see by the numbers that it makes sense. So now we know what the Excel would tell us. And then what you have is there was a total surplus. So what they're doing here in this analysis is saying how much of the surplus was due to medical and how much of the surplus was due to other accounts. So the surplus due to medical would be the difference between the 4485 and the 4317, clearly a 167.2. Agreed? And then the surplus due to everything else, well, they take the surplus, 740, and minus the 167, and that's your Excel for getting that one. Agreed? Now, underneath, I'm all good with this chart. I think it's great. And my comments, I'm going to get to in a second. But the medical surplus, they then say how much percentage, the medical surplus as a percentage of the medical budget, how much was it? And then they say the remaining surplus over the remaining budget. So as you can see, they're saying the medical surplus compared to its budget was a lot, right, as a percentage, which has been what we've been saying for a long time, that we're over budgeting in medical. Then we're saying the remaining surplus over the remaining budget is between 1.35, 2.7, 4.3, 3.45, 2.90, and 3.08. First of all, any questions on the chart? Okay. Here's my observation, and that's the material down low, all right, which I don't know if you can see it in the room here. So what I'll do is I'll come off presentation mode, or trying to, and let me get to what I'm saying here. I'm seeing a change in almost a definition of what a surplus at Amity is. Now, Kevin, you go back further than I, but I started on this board in 2005, and I was also the Amity Finance Committee member then. And it was talked that the budget should be within there should be a 1% budget surplus, around there. Say $40 million budget, you have $400,000. $50 million, $500,000. And that was from 2005 to about 2012. That's what I observed. And then, and let's just say that's the Brady era. Then from 2013 to 2017, we started hearing, well, actually it's 1 to 2% was proper. 1 to 2%. Then between and that was when Chip Dumais was the superintendent. Now comes 2017 to 2021. Now we start to hear that really it should be about 2 to 3% of the budget. I don't know if have you guys noticed that over time? Or you new to this? Kevin, do you remember these things? You're not at Amity as much as I. Do Do you remember those kind of statements?
From certain members, yes.
Yeah. Now, this document states they view the surplus percentage after you extract the medical budget. After you take out 10% of the budget that varies a lot, and they're saying it has an average over the last 2.96%. And if you look at the last line, I believe it says, I would like to quote this so I don't get it wrong. After extracting the medical budget, this shows that the fund balance averages 2.96%, which is in the acceptable range of 3% or less. I feel like someone's doing a card game on me.
Well, the thing with medical that gets tricky is the regional school systems and cities and towns have a healthcare consultant, which actually builds the model for claims.
Right.
And they put a projection together, usually every year on an annual basis. So if anything needs to be addressed, I think it probably would be the fact of the budgeted claims. Because if you look at the budgeted claims in your first two columns here for 14 and 15, you basically have an average of around 4.4 million. But then you look at the actuals on where they came in at 3.9, 4 million. So you really need to build your budget based on prior year's 24-month, 2-year actuals.
Sounds like a familiar theme at Amity.
Yeah. So, but with all due respect, the budget itself on that is built by the consultants, not so much the Amity staff or the Amity finance people. It's really, if anything, the staff or the Amity finance staff could say to the consultant, say, hey, look, I'm looking at a 10-year trend here where you projected 4.4 million per year in claims, and we're only averaging 3.9. So you got a little bit of, cushion there to play with, where you can lower it.
Here's
But,
one.
yeah.
I see your point.
Yeah.
Let me give you something to noodle on, and you don't have to respond now, or you could, or in the future, or... What I'm seeing over time with those 4 bullet points, Kev, is back in 2000, when I first started, and when you were on this committee for the other time, right? They were talked about 1 or 2%. They didn't say, well, first you have to bring out the claims and the medical, and all of a sudden, when 6% or 5% becomes your surplus, then all of a sudden we've got this new arithmetic we need to do. And it's a justification that isn't consistent with past budgeting. Am I way off, Kevin? Talk to me, I'll listen. Do you see my point?
And you're backing out a big number, and to me, well, they shouldn't do that, but that's how they're making
Well, they
this
weren't
claim.
doing it back in the past.
Correct. And the reason you have, like we do on the town, I'm not sure what our percentage is, and I don't expect John to know right off the top of his head, but we have a medical reserve. They have a medical reserve. I don't know where it is, if it's 20%, 20. So if you miss on that, you're still covered.
Right.
If the experts came in too low,
And that was that yellow number from the other page that we
yeah,
think was
they
had to
used
be
it,
pushed to
rolled it
balance
forward
it.
because the reserve got too big, and they
Yep.
said, "Oh, let's use a little," because we've done that in our budgeting.
We do it
You know,
every year.
if it got too big, because our claims were less, then
Okay.
we saved the next year. So there's a pot of money set aside in the reserve account at whatever percentage that is. It's probably at least 20,
Yeah.
if not more. So then it's unfair to then say, "Oh, well, this surplus doesn't count, so that doesn't go towards the."
It almost, I mean, to me, when you were talking back in the day from 2005 to 2017, they were doing 1 or 2% of the total budget, and you had to figure it out. There's a lot of things you have to figure out. You know, the price of natural gas, for example. All right, what's going to happen to it next year? That kind of thing. Or gasoline, or whatever it is. So all I'm saying is there now is the data. There's one person's thoughts today, okay? I'll be happy to listen, particularly members of this board, but anyone who has data and reasoning for why all of a sudden there's a different methodology for saying what's a proper, acceptable range of a surplus.
And without beating this chart to death, I think whoever created it needs to go back and redo their numbers.
Which one are you talking about, Kev?
This surplus chart, because if they're showing in 2021 total surplus of 2.4 million,
Yeah,
that number's wrong because we received 1.4 million and we're at 50%.
oh, there is no doubt that when I went through a couple of these things,
And some
I
of it's when
stumbled
they've already
across it.
taken some money out, or those aren't. But if we receive 1.4, we know they put 1% to the capital reserve. So that was $500,600,000.
This
And
past year?
this would
Now it's 2%.
2021
Well,
is what
yeah,
we got the check.
correct.
21, 22. So that's where we got the 1.4.
So that's 2.8.
2021. If we got 1.4, 1.42, it had to be at least 2.8 before the 500 or 600, and they're showing,
Correct.
2.4. So
Kevin?
they're understating this already.
I looked at those numbers. You're looking at the numbers, team, and people at home in the red about what the total surplus is. And we probably, it would take time, energy, and commitment. But there is clearly different surplus numbers in the years that we are discussing for the last three numbers from the right, 18, 19, 19, 20, and 2021. No doubt. When I looked at those numbers, Kevin, I said, what? It's not the right numbers. But there's only so much there's lots of questions I have, right? So anyway, so now you have this document, team. I've given you some slides. I'll send you the slides. Any questions more over this, because there's other things I got to cover?
In 21, 22 now,
Yes.
or I should say for for the surplus for 21, 22, they voted to take.
I'm going to cover that in a
Oh,
minute.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to cover
I
that.
won't confuse it then.
No. There's, I'm confused at home how to tell you guys. I mean,
Well,
that's
I don't
why.
want to confuse you because you make
I've been,
mistakes.
well, I'm trying, but nobody's infallible. Okay, so this gets to your point, Kevin. What's happened recently at Amity, and I went to the last two meetings, so I firsthand report, but I'm doing it for Joe. Okay. So I'm going to give you an update, and there's some links here. Unfortunately, I don't think the links work. I'll send you guys the PowerPoint, but when I put it up into the town version, I have to put it up as a PDF, and I don't think links work, and I don't know how you copy them, but maybe there's a PDF converter out there. Okay. The first thing that happened was there was an announcement by the superintendent that there is now a law that allows the regional school systems to, violation right there. This is when spell check does not cap, you could retrain it, but it was probably written, whether I agree with it or not, to retain 100% of the budget surplus and not return any money to the member towns. Did you guys hear that? Kevin Moffett, did you hear that?
I did hear that, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. There's going to be more on this for a while, I'm sure. But anyway, that happened in that meeting. Superintendent Byers explained it, explained the reasoning. Paul Davis had John Belfonte, apparently before he resigned, all right, to present to the superintendent to investigate something. So she did her, forced to do it type of duty. And lo and behold, they got a law firm. And I think the second was by, let me get my Amity folder. We have a lot of folders here. My notes of the meeting. The Amity Board of Education attorney. It was a straightforward answer that the law And there was no question about it that the Amity Finance Committee shall have the power, the Amity Board of Education have the power to retain the entire surplus. Okay. Let's see. And then I think was mentioned that was given to other, another State Department of Education legal team, and they had a neutral opinion, at least my notes say it is. God bless if I'm right or wrong. And so I went and found where that is, and there it is. So when you get it, you can click on it. Here's what you're going to find out when you get there. Hey, but I'll tell you what, no waiting. When you get there, let's see if I can find it right away for you guys. Got so many things open, John. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we just click on this, John? You're going to get something that looks like that. And I looked at it and I said, huh. Now, I haven't read the whole thing. I've engaged resources to help with understanding that document, okay? But when you click on that, you notice that it was 2020. Now, I happen to remember 2020. That's when the pandemic started. If you remember in April and May of that year, let's see, Kevin and John will remember, that's when the Amity Board of Education had its own power to approve its own budget. And we had thoughts on that. So I'm saying to myself, I don't know if this happened during pandemic thinking or whatever it was, okay? So that's what the news was. So there's the thing, it's right over there. I'll go back to the presentation then. So now you guys can get to the same thing. Okay, there was a lot of discussion at that meeting. It took up most of the meeting about the working of the statute. In that meeting, the AFC voted to approve 1% of the surplus facilities capital account. My understanding is that later, the Amity Board of Education voted to approve approximately, not exactly, 2% of the surplus to that capital reserve account. And there was a new method I'll mention, I'm going to show you in a slide in a minute, of communicating monthly documentation to the member towns in the Excel files. So when you see the Excel file, what I'm going to show you in a minute is what that new method is, so you don't have to go hunting for it. All right, because it took me a little while to figure it out. All good on what happened at that meeting? Kev? Ajit? You good? Thank you.
Excuse me.
Oh. So in the next meeting, let me see. Oh, okay. I asked in advance for a confirmation of the Amity budget increase details, and so I got that. It didn't come as a surprise since we all knew that 3.19 had been approved by the voters back in June on the third referendum. All right, so I just wanted to confirm that $1,651,598 was what was the absolute needs as expressed in the budget documentation for Amity, what they needed for this coming fiscal year. And they said, yes, that's it. Okay. As a matter of fact, let me get Terry Loomis. So what I did is I asked, rather than get to the meeting and say, oh, I've got these questions, and someone goes scrambling, or I go over 2 minutes or whatever, I said, well, let me bang out, it took me about an hour and a half, I'll bang out these things, and sure enough, Terry Loomis, in typical fashion, you know, Terry's very, very sharp in these regards, she got them right to me. That was the first thing. The second thing was, I was confused, and I'll show you in a second where, because I got two different numbers for the, if I went to the end of the year tab in the Excel document, so I'll just open up the Excel document sitting right here anyway, all right? If you go to the left, you'll see the end of the year thing. So I said, oh, I just take the net balance here. I'll just highlight that so you can kind of get it in your eyeballs, all right, the concept, right? So there's the net balance, which is our version of the deficit. And, of course, anything that they flew over from other places, such as this transfer and anything else. And that's how I came up with these numbers over here. And I come up with 1,557,641. But that was one method. But then when I got when I looked at the August tab, and I can show you on that in a second, all right, they have a thing called carryover. That sounded like money not going back to the town or being used, so they advertised for the next year's budget. And the actual transfer. So anyway, I asked Terry, and Terry identified, yes, this is the difference. This is the correct number for last year's surplus. So I was happy to get that, and I wanted you guys to know that. Questions on this? Three Kevins? Ajit? Good? Okay, thank you. Third one, and this is the Excel file, and this is where it got a little bit funny. You see how up on here, I'll move it, Kev. See this carryover funds over here by the A, Kev? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Okay, you see how last month they didn't have it, now they do have it. That's the difference. That's kind of like you take the surplus, you subtract out what they used for that capital reserve, and this is what's left. That's my understanding of what that number is.
That sounds about right.
Okay? Yeah.
900,000 for the capital reserve.
Well, if you go back one slide, you can see it's sitting right. Well, I got 607,
Yeah.
194.
929,
Right?
yep.
Okay. But then when I go off to the right here, see, here's where it got funny for me. Because I'm saying to myself, wait a minute. All of these columns, right? You add up what's in the column and then you get the bottom number. And obviously you're not adding up these two numbers and getting that because that's that number. Right? So I'm saying, whoa, what's going on here? And the same thing over here. You know, I could see it took me a while, and I said, oh, the 632 is just take this and subtract that. Huh. So this is here, but it's it. So that's one thing I noticed, and I wanted you guys. And remember, this is first time through, second time through in August for the Amity admin to figure out how to picture this. They wanted not to bury it. They wanted it to be there somewhere. So, you know, I just wanted, when you guys look at the Excel file, to understand that's what's going on. Questions on the Excel file? I can draw up the Excel file if you want to see it. But I just figured a picture would be faster.
That's good.
Good? Okay. But here's what really got me a little confused. You see this other revenue? So this is the summary page, right? So here's the other revenue page, which is underneath, which shows you what the other components of other revenue are. And I still don't understand it. Because here, you have the carryover in the other revenue, but you had it on the front page as well. So maybe they just want to get it on the front page. But I wanted to alert you that that's what I observed, okay? So that if you say, hey, what's going on? They're still working it through is what I'm hearing. They're still working with the auditors on how to present this information because it's a new gig, right? If you're not giving the money back to the towns, then how are you going to be keeping it on the table, but where do you put it? That kind of stuff. So I'm just giving you what I know. Okay. All right. That's what I have for an Amity update, unless you guys... Oh, and one other thing happened. I apologize. I think I had a page that got bounced here through my tremendous editing skills, I'm sure. I asked 3 questions, and you can see the 3 here. At this September meeting, last Monday, the vice chairman of the Amity Finance Committee, who is in Kevin's role in Woodbridge. He's the chairman of the Amity Board of Finance, excuse me, the Woodbridge Board of Finance. Matt Giglietti. He resigned, okay? And I was there. My daughter's going to be very proud of me, but not happy with me at the same time as you. So what I did is I took out my video, which I always know if I make a video, don't go over a minute because then it'll be too big and you send it, right? But I can send to you guys and I can make available to anyone who wants it because we now have it up on YouTube. Now I am just going to play a short amount because the audio is what you would expect from me 30 feet away using this iPhone. But let me just tell you what it is, show you what it is.
Definitely orange, the state have changed, and they're represented several times. Always good people like Shannon. But I say on, because I always felt like I could work with the family and the taxpayers. My kids are very good for that. And hopefully keep the languages to make my time here meaningful. And it's always worked, except the past year and a half, I have felt that we are disregarded and not terribly.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
You can hear it, but we're not going to play it because it makes no sense here, okay?
And it'll never come through on OGAT.
No, it's not going to go through an OGAT. So I'm going to stop it right now, and I'm going to identify you that, by the way, there's something that if you have a video, you can send it to someplace and they'll transcribe it in 4 hours. Unfortunately, I haven't mastered how you edit it. And I have already, prior to this meeting, while we were waiting for everyone to show up due to the rain and traffic and stuff, I have shared with everyone this document, which is that, you know, it's 95% accurate. I didn't do this transcription, someone did, but a company called Rev.com. And it probably needs a few more edits, but it gives you a pretty good sense of what Matt said, okay? And if I was really at the top of my game, spent more than 10 hours preparing for this meeting, all right, I would have had highlights of this for you. So, you know, there's obviously room for improvement, all right? So Matt has resigned. One of the key things he mentions, I believe at the end, first of all, he makes a very big difference about must and shall. Okay, and he has an opinion about that, as do lawyers that he knows. All right, and he says what really broke it up for him was this surplus issue. He also says the following: I will now be working with Jim Leahy. How does that sound? And now we'll be working together. He wants to work with other finance professionals, including people on the board, regarding this. He also mentions that the only reason the third referendum passed is because the first selectman in well, let me read it. Because our first selectman came out a statement that she would support the budget, something she regrets. And I can assure you she won't do it again. I'm speaking for Matt's words again, because she's already disappointed too about the surplus. So that's another output of my final Amity update that from the September meeting last Monday. Questions?
Jim, the only thing, I did some research on that Connecticut General Statute as well. It looks as though...
Looks like you printed it out.
Yeah, it looks like so back in 2000, like 2005, early 2006, there was the statute was amended or enacted. It said here, on or after June 7th of 2006, a regional board by a majority of vote may create a reserve for capital non-recurring expenditures.
Right.
That's where the 2% developed from. But it also says that the Amity Finance or Board of Ed has the ability to carry a surplus over to a following year, and none of us that have been on this board for 20 years were even aware that this statute even existed, because back in 2002, there was an agreement put together by the three towns that the money would come back to the
Yeah.
to the towns. However, the state statute, the way it reads, indicates that it's contrary language to the way everybody's has been operating. So the question for us is, because Amity did take action on taking the entire surplus, and we still have money budgeted within our revenue for that, which we did lower this past year.
700,000.
Yeah, we
700.
lowered it from 1.2 down to 700.
So we're, right now, the way I look at it, we're short just under 500,000 because they did not return anything. But we lowered the initial budget by 207 from the referendum failure, so probably net, right, John? Are we around $500,000?
Here's what's stunning to me, if that's and I appreciate you doing that analysis, Kevin, and also summarizing it for us. When I was on the board, right, between 2005 and 2009, the Amity Finance Committee, John Brady, the superintendent, went to great pains to not want to put surplus money, because then it wasn't keep all the surplus and throw it into next year's budget. It was a question of, do you want to put 300,000, 500,000, something like that, all right? And he was championing, don't do that, because if we all know, you're creating a hole, right? Because if you don't do it every time thereafter, right? So he actually, and if you remember Chip Dumais, one of his objectives was to get away from using the next superintendent. So we had one who advised against it. Chip Dumais comes in and says, let's not do that anymore. We have to wean ourselves off of that. That's what he was saying over the years when Chip was here, 4 or 5 years, whatever it was, okay? And so if that was there in 2007, we now have a decade where that was an operating procedure.
Right.
And I'm glad you were able to. I just looked at that paragraph that looked like one paragraph or a page and a half. I said, not today.
Yeah.
All right. Right.
Looked like one sentence.
That's right. So I appreciate you doing that. But you see what I'm saying in terms of how it actually was working?
Yeah, how it played out, yeah.
So.
Well, to me, what they've done, if they were looking at doing this back in February, okay, so our share is going to be lower. You already have your approved budget, and now you're applying a number that you don't need. That's the bad rub of what they've done. They didn't need it. They know they didn't need it, but they kept it anyway. To roll forward to next year, the year after, because the budget was done.
With the assumption that there would be a surplus and it would be coming back. You know, the surplus would be coming back to the towns.
Joe presented that in the meeting in August when it was first presented. Remember, I said discussion of the group or whatever what I said for a one-liner there on the PowerPoint slide. So all I can tell you is our representative, I was there. Joe commented on that. I think, remember, why is there an Amity Finance Committee meeting group at all? Because there was a $2 million shortfall, and people got a new, because of this shortfall, you now have more taxes to pay, whatever that amount turned out to be. And people were ticked,
Yeah, we had a special assessment.
Yeah. Yeah.
okay? What do we have today? We have $3 million in surplus regularly. To me, the need for financial discipline and controls, and everybody's got the one-word answer for all problems of the universe these days, COVID. Right? Yeah? Have you heard? That only goes so far. Right? So all I'm saying is, this is the update. I'm sure we're going to be living this for a while. We're going to be hearing people talk about it. Matt Giglietti is promising to do that if you read the rest of his presentation. And he wants to get together with anyone else interested in that. So that's what I know as far as an Amity update.
Thank you very much. Okay. Item 6, discuss.
Oh, whoa, not so fast.
Oh.
That was the Amity update.
Oh, I thought that was all part of the
No,
Vice
it's-
Chairman's
it's
report and
gone.
everything.
Violation,
Oh, you accept those
violation,
tonight?
Yeah,
I
we're-
said. Come on, I tried to do this fast, guys, and I will, okay? So you guys, and this is for you. This isn't for, because there's going to be a lot of time left in the rest of the world, right? Updated thoughts on the budget, all right? Kev, you might want to turn your chair, but here you go. You've seen this, all of you and people at home, despite the fact that this seems to confuse some members of the Amity Finance Committee who are from the Amity Board of Education. I don't know about 12 years, 4 years, very complex math apparently. Anyway, it's still true that for a 12-year period, the average surplus was 1.1 million. It's still true that the average surplus, by my data, over the last 4 years, and some of it may be slightly off. Kevin, you mentioned that 1920, that 2368, 820 as being maybe too low. But anyway, it's a large number, around 3 million. So anyway, the 1,036,324 that Terry confirmed, right, that I asked her to, the administration to confirm, is the surplus for the years that just passed. So I wanted to get that in the chart. All right? And I still believe his surpluses overtax taxpayers. That's what I'm true. This is a chart that I showed last June, and that is, we're talking about an increase from one year to the next. You guys probably remember that. Then I got to the point of, let's just cut to the chase, this one. I made an assumption, let me go back one, that there would be $2 million in the surplus and what that would mean for a budget. And the argument was if you had only $1.6 million in increases, which are a number we've already seen, okay? Then it's already covered by the surplus amount that you have in the budget that you have for the current year. Turns out, and so I showed this chart here, and what we were saying is, even if you use the Orange Board of Finance 0.41% increase, the surplus built in would be over $500,000. And if you use the Amity's 3.19% increase, which had yet to be approved but was approved, you would then have a built-in surplus of about $2,001,598. Okay, that's what I said last June. Here's what the reality is today, and this is the chart I want you guys to be aware of. You can critique it. I'll be happy to have your critique. But the actual cost, as you can see on the chart on the right, Kevin, which we were doing before you and I before the meeting, all right, was $50,161,883. It's in the gold in the bar chart. And the surplus that I just had confirmed by Terry Loomis is $1,536,324, and that adds up to the budget that you see for last fiscal year. Roger that. Now, we know that the increase was $1,651,598. I already showed you a chart earlier in this presentation. That got confirmed when I asked, is that the number? So that tells me that over on the right here, doing the math, let Excel do the math, if that's your need, you can cover your need by pretty much the surplus that you already have in last year's budget. You have a little bit, you need extra amount to cover the need, all right? And so that's the deal on that one, okay? That's what I'm observing. But you also have this increase, and to my way of thinking, the only thing that increase can go is the surplus. There's no other place. You don't have budgeted items for it. people have approved this 3.19% increase, and there's no items budgeted for it. And this is what's been happening for the last numerous years.
So Jim, what is the solution to this surplus issue?
Well, we can talk solutions. We're now in this. I'll be happy for you to come up with solutions, and anyone else, okay? I have thoughts on it. Looks like this is the same chart. Here's what I'm observing, and I want you guys to kind of internalize this. This is a summary of the budgets from Amity over the last year. It starts out at 4.92, Kevin, in January. And unlike most other years, perhaps under different administrations, that number typically would come down over the January through March timeframe months. They found this, they found that, right? That didn't happen this year. What happened, it went to March 14th, that Monday in May, and it reduced to 3.99, and there it stayed. There was no finding any savings, other than, as we know, a couple of $100,000 out of medical and dental,
Medical reserve.
and a reduction out of OPEB, I think maybe 100,000, something like that. And that's what got voted on, and it got voted down. And then the second vote came up, and it was 3.59%, and that got voted down. And then it was 3.19%, and that got passed. So, I have heard a lot from people saying, those people at Orange Board of Finance, how did they ever come up with 0.41 for what was needed? Some people thought it was zero. I may be looking at some of them. Take a look at what the actual need is. The actual need is what I was showing you over here, excuse me, on this one, that 115,274. All right? Because you already had the full amount from last year. You already told me you only needed 1,651,598. And you had it identified by category. Okay. So we didn't have 2 million in surplus. We had 1,536,324, which almost covered what we needed. So we have a little bit left over. And maybe you need a little bit for a rainy day, but all those rainy days cost all taxpayers money. And that's what we got here. So I created this chart so we could visually, and this is in Excel. I didn't create crazy charts. What I see there. And as you can see, the ones on the left were created by the Amity administration and the taxpayer voting. And then I added on our assessment, and even we were too high. Matter of fact, we were too high by almost double. That's what I got, Kev. Questions, team? Am I being fair here, Kevin?
That's a good chart. That's a good chart.
No, it doesn't have any buffer in it. Roger that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, and this is the problem when you don't, as you said, Kevin, earlier, if you don't go back to your actuals, and that's what, there's a gal, she's joined the board, Kevin, Megan,
As the alternate.
as the
yeah.
alternate. She did some analysis. She came up with the same conclusions. Your problem is you're not going back to your actuals. All right? So, okay, I'm done, Kevin. Thank you.
All right, now we'll try item number 6, discuss and vote to return excise cost sharing reimbursement to Orange Board of Education. Memo from Christine Koch. The amount's $201,073. This is the same thing we do every year.
We do this every year.
Yes.
We're a little late this year. We've already recorded it in the books as we're
This
moving
one,
along with
John?
our
But
audit.
the thing
and
I
this-
noticed is
Had no choice.
they didn't ask for all of it.
No, a couple of years in a row either, so.
Well, almost all, right?
Yeah, a couple of thousand.
Yeah, a couple thousand, okay, just to
Yeah.
keep it fair, all right? But yeah, I understand too, yeah. Good deal, good deal.
So we just need a motion.
to accept.
Yeah, I'll have a
Motion to
motion.
accept.
Motion by Kevin,
Volunteer, yeah.
Kevin?
Yep.
second by Jim.
Good, no, whatever,
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, unanimous. Great, thank you. Item 7, funding request. Allocate funds, land purchase, Wheelers Farms Road up to $270,000. Was that a Board of Selectmen meeting, John?
Yes, it was. That's all I could give you right now on it because they're still doing their negotiations, but we're purchasing it in conjunction with the land trust. We're each paying half.
Do we have material on this, John, or did
No,
you? No,
no,
okay, thank
no.
you.
So all I need is a motion
Yeah.
to allocate this money out of our capital fund. We'll use our capital fund for this.
So the Board of Selectmen has approved.
Yes.
Oh, so it's, we're kind of,
We're just following their direction now.
all right. Kevin, you want to do it?
Yes, I make a motion to allocate the funds for the land
Up to.
purchase up to $270,000 for the land purchase on Wheelers Farm Road.
I'll second the motion.
All right.
Second by Kevin. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, unanimous. Thank you.
Okay. No closed, whoops. Oh, that was a violation.
Okay. Item number 8, transfer request. Approval to transfer $207,142 from Amity expense account to negotiation reserve.
Okay, as I said at budget time, because some of the people were quite concerned about this, that we would move the money out of the Amity line item in our budget to another account once the Amity budget was passed. And this is the amount to move, so.
And that's just a good parking account because we don't want to move it somewhere else where somebody's going to spend it.
Right, so it'll sit
Right.
there. We have 4 contracts we're negotiating, but we're not gonna need this for that. But because it is of that amount, I need your board approval to do it.
And we have something to, flash on the screen for this one, right, John?
Yeah, you have a budget transfer
This one?
request.
Yeah, okay.
Our internal paper.
Yeah. Okay, so because it wasn't 3.99% and it was 3.19%, this is the difference to us. Is that what I'm hearing, John?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll make that motion, sure.
Motion by Jim. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Kevin. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you.
That'll show up in your next.
Revenue printout or expense printout?
Yes.
All right, minutes. I got to find those, Deb.
Discussion approval of minutes from
Okay.
June 6th.
Batting lead off,
D-Day,
John?
2022.
I didn't have anything to correct on here.
Okay, I had some. Let me just, you can be patient. Oh, here it is. Okay, so when we post things, we're not saying we would agree with what was stated, right?
Correct. It's what was said at the meeting.
Thank you. Okay. On the bottom of page 2, in the Amity, in that paragraph. Oh, yeah. Last sentence in this bullet, Deb and John and team, for your consideration. The Amity Board of Education did not advise that. That was the superintendent. The Amity superintendent advised, while it is the ABOE's, Amity Board of Education's job to determine the dollar amount, it is up to the superintendent to determine how the money should be allocated. Okay? That's for sure. Okay. On the top of page, the third and final page, the first bullet, I think a more appropriate word, and the last 5 words there would be 4 historic years of excessive $3 million surpluses each year. I happen to believe it's a wasteful use of taxpayer funds. It's an unnecessary one, really, but it's an excessive one. I think that's the proper adjective there. On the next bullet, and this is my final one, team, starting the sentence that currently starts with the word without, please add, and you already saw the chart that discussed it, assuming a $2 million surplus in fiscal year 21-22, comma, without any budget increase for next year, there would still be a $500,000 surplus. That's what the chart said. As we saw. That's all I had, Kevin.
Okay, anyone else? Then is there a motion to approve as amended?
Second motion?
Jim, second?
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, unanimous. Yeah, I don't want to belabor a point, but there was a speaker who had confusion. I think that's what Jim was referring to, as to saying we have 20% surpluses, and we had a 20% fund balance, not annual surpluses. And that was just,
Perhaps.
and at the meeting, I just said,
Ignorance.
just
I don't.
anymore either, but that was,
Yeah.
there was, we're not there, so we'll just leave
Those were
that.
the days.
Yeah. Item
okay.
10, to review revenue and expense reports for the year end, June 2022.
Let me find this one, John, to
These
make
will be
sure.
the last time you see these until we get the audit for this year.
John, let me make sure, because I went through these in detail, so I want to make sure I've got the right one open, and I don't think I do. So that's expenses, so
No,
this
that's-
must be it, right?
That's the current year, you're in the wrong year.
This one
12, okay.
is the revenue for last year, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. I did an analysis of this, and again, if I had another half hour or so, I could have typed it up. But this shows that we have $1.1 million in benefit in surplus. Is that right, John? Excuse me, to the good in the revenue side of this budget. Is that correct?
Hold on.
$1,107,902
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
before the audit. These could
prior
change.
to the audit.
Yeah,
Roger
these could
that.
change a little bit.
Unaudited.
Okay. So as I was going through it, I was going to say, I could ask this question, that question, and I said, wait a minute, what are the major drivers? Right? So one way of getting through this, but Kevin, I don't want to usurp any of your powers, but just let me start and you see how you feel about it. Because I think this is important. Because it's going to be important when we start talking about this year's budget and the impact of having funds not coming back from Amity. So this is telling us that we were budgeting 76, 114, 029, and lo and behold, we got more than that. Okay? And what you find out when you do the lo and behold is that there are 10 categories of factors that more plus it or minus it. And I'll just identify them for you because I was doing this and I said, well, if I can't type it up, at least tell the guys.
Jim, I may be able to make it easier for you. If you look at each page.
It's two big accounts.
I have it circled, the big ones.
Well,
FEMA and Amity.
Yeah.
Well, I agree that FEMA's 327, and I agree that Amity's 577.
And Yale, University of New Haven's 100 because we
Correct.
collected
That's
up
one of
on
my.
them.
That's one of my 12.
And,
Okay. I had the assessor for 97. All right, this pilot
and
coverage thing. Right? Right. On the first page. Well, let's do what you said. Let's just briefly go through.
Yeah,
We
I
can
mean,
see the
go-
pilot. I didn't understand what that pilot college is. What's that?
That's from the state. That's a grant that we
Okay.
get from the
Payment in lieu of
state.
tax-free.
Okay, so we
Yeah,
got,
right.
we're to the
Yeah.
benefit of 90. So if people are saying, whoa, you guys don't, let's explain why we're 1.1 in the
If
good.
everybody remembers, in the spring of this year, the state legislature raised the pilot for everybody by a huge amount. City of New Haven got $65 million, I think, more than what they had expected, and our share of it was about 90.
Okay.
And
3
Meriden
years, we
probably-
don't know where that's coming from anymore, but we'll deal with that right now, because it's gonna be a problem.
Okay, the next one I saw, John, as a major category, rather than breaking it into pieces, was we had a benefit of 360 from most of where our money comes from in collecting taxes.
Correct.
All right, so we'll just let that one go. Then I think if we just slide down just slightly more,
You can see convenience.
you can see
fee
the
there.
FEMA one was the 327, which is what you identified,
If you go
Kevin.
back a little bit,
That's
you can see
conveyance.
conveyance fee too is
Yeah, 70K.
70. So we had quite a few properties. there.
105.
And with the prices going up too.
Town clerk, I had that on my list. Thank you, Kevin. I snuck right by myself. Good. Excellent. Good teamwork. All right, keep sliding down. So we had a FEMA thing that is really unconnected to the
Okay,
budget.
then you got the Amity Surplus.
Now this we have a bunch of things. We got $1.4 million back from Kevin, from Amity that Kevin was alluding to. We had budgeted $850. We got $1.4 million, so the net was about $577. All
Right.
right.
Favorable.
Now,
Yeah.
We had budgeted $700,000 in fund balance that we didn't need to use.
Correct.
That was a good thing. And the 100 from, was it Yale? No, New Haven.
University of New Haven.
So we had a budget of 100, which we were worrying about getting, and all of a sudden we got 200.
So basically, the additional money from Amity and the additional money from New Haven allowed us not to use the money from the fund balance.
Roger that.
Right there.
Okay, good. And we slide down a little bit further. I think I have two more.
Okay, and there we had a
What's
bad
up with-
one there, park and rec self-support.
Right?
I think because of COVID, they didn't run some programs. Plus, our labor fees have gone up for the camp and everything else. So they're going to have to take a look at their fees that they charge the.
So we'll be interested, Kevin, in what
People.
their fund balance is, or what, when we get the auditor's report, right?
Correct.
Right, okay. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we've done that in the past, right?
Okay, there where I have that arrow.
Yep.
You can see food
Permits?
permits. They're in two different line items because I think the second one is for credit cards.
All right.
So that's why the negative 18 and 26 is actually a positive number there.
Okay, yeah, the positive and negatives could drive you crazy
Right.
here, couldn't it?
Right.
Okay, and then we have, let's see, we had a 45 in here in the health area, right?
Yeah, that is mostly because Dr. Muhammad got a grant from the state that we've been paying him and Brian Sokolowski.
So we
some
got
money
extra
every month.
budget, but we also had extra
Yeah,
expense
and it-
that.
Oh, yeah,
There's
his salary's up,
yeah,
that's on the expense
Yeah,
side.
there's a timing difference there too because he's collected it through
Okay.
October of this year and the money's in last year. You don't match it like we do
Roger that.
privately.
We're almost
So
to
we'll
the
pick up
finish
some
line.
additional revenue then?
Now we're going to pick up some additional costs, but he's put in for another grant for the same thing. And he expects that to come through for another 18 months.
Oh, good for him.
So-
That's good for us.
There's
Yeah.
the $2,000 or whatever difference between that we just talked
Right,
about. We've got
right.
special ed for the K through 6.
Art's already marked that because we're
right.
along our way with the audit.
Okay. For some reason, we got 14,000 over here, which is a,
That was an increase.
Negative.
That was another increase from the state. They gave us a little more than we had budgeted for.
okay, thank you. And we, a little short on the,
Nah,
Insurance.
That's a funny area there. When we have employees, certain unions go off on a workers' comp, we pay them their full salary, and then we get reimbursed a percentage of it from the union, and that's just an estimate every year. We leave that at about $50,000 every year. Some years we collect more, some years we collect less.
okay, and the final one is we had a benefit of 167,000 in two categories, the bicentennial.
Okay, that That is the revenue we collected for like the picnic and selling the souvenirs, and there's an offset to that in
Yep.
the expense side.
Oh, yeah, well, that
Okay.
line jumped to 87 from what we
Yeah.
put in.
So kind of we have both.
Right.
So it's kind of a phony.
Right,
Okay.
instead of netting them in government, you do it like this.
You gotta do it that way.
Yep.
Yeah,
And the 113, the negative number for people at home, that's actually what we budgeted. We didn't budget a negative. It's actually, that's what we budgeted.
they actually gave us 313 in revenue, but that revenue is really our taxes cost and our benefit cost. So we charge them for that for those employees, even though they're on a different fund.
Okay, all I'm saying is for the people looking at home, when they see negative numbers, most brains think of it as not, we budgeted negative.
Yeah,
We're-
these are all revenues.
You know, so if you're at home, some of us on the team had the same reaction when we first saw this method of doing it, but we've gotten used to it. Maybe they haven't. Anyway, so that's a quick 5-minute dive to summarize how come at this moment in unaudited time.
Right.
Agreed?
Right.
Thank you. So the expense, Kevin, are we going to the expenses now?
Yes.
Okay. Now I have to get the right one, Kevin, so, John, that's not it. It's a different expense one. Must be this one. 6, okay. Let me get it up to the same height as before. Okay, that should be close. Okay, and let me slide it over so I can, okay. So why don't we go to the summary line first, because that's really the easiest way to get the brain to kind of get into gear and say, okay, what in blazes is going on? And John and I had a quick conversation today to get my brain more in gear. But anyway, John, why don't you fire away?
All right, so because we had the racebook track and a capital transfer and some encumbrances, it kind of hides our budget number. So I did a quick calculation to get us back to where we should be with the budget. This calculation then shows us unaudited again about 753,000 surplus on the expense side of the budget.
So where you walked me through it this morning was we had the 84, 867, 225.
Right. Take out
You
the
subtract
cost,
the
race
number
book,
that's right up
monthly cost.
above, right there, that's the 853.
Right.
You subtract out what we put into capital transfer.
Right.
And then you say,
You add back
but hold
your-
the bus, we got these encumbrances here.
Right.
All right, we can talk about them. And then, so you take that number, you subtract, and then you add, and that's where you got the 75,386,074.
Right.
And then you say the budget is this, and then I'll slide it down just one more time, and that's where you could see the surplus of 752,954 on the expense side. And 58 cents, Deb, I don't want to slide you on that. Okay, and on the right, you said that this number here, if you, walk me through that again, John?
If you add back the 8531 and the 1.5 million gives you the 752.
And
That's
so
just the
it
double check
agrees.
on that.
All right, unaudited. Okay, so that's the overview. Everybody good? Okay. So now we can kind of slide through. Got my list, I'm sure everybody else got theirs. At whatever ones, maybe we go from the front and just stop where people want to stay. So we'll do, like, not page by page, but start at the front and see how quickly we can get through this. I think it's probably another 5-minute job. I don't think it takes that much. All right, on page 1, John, I don't myself see much, favorable on the assessor's office and nice to know and that kind of thing. I'm going to recommend going to page 2, Kev. Page 2.
I don't see anything really until we probably get
All right.
much farther along, but you guys can,
I'm on
Everybody has
page
their own question.
4. If anybody has something before page 4, give me a shout. I'm going to go to page 4. And I'm going to give a shout out to legal, 23,000 on the under. If I understand that right, John? Okay. I don't have anything on 5. 6, on the tax collector. If I got this right, that's in the over category.
Right.
and that's because of the salaries.
Well, a couple of things.
Not being
we
booked.
had both our our tax collector and assistant tax collector leave, so we had to pay him out accrued benefits, sick time and all that. Then we had to bring new people in, and we had to bring in part-time people, and they had to work some overtime and all. So it's mostly in salaries. Plus, we started going out, doing a little more outside computer work with the tax bills. For instance, one of the things we did in June was, instead of trying to mail the tax bills out of here and putting them in envelopes and all, we let Quality Data, who prints them, put them out.
It makes sense.
It made a lot of sense. They would be up there days stuffing envelopes. Quality Data did them. If you had two tax bills going to your house, they went in the same envelope. So we saved stamps, postage, and envelopes and everything else. So we'll continue to do that.
Okay. Page 7. I got one on page 7 myself. I'm curious. It was this electricity. I think I saw it somewhere else. Are we using less, or are we getting a good rate compared to what we budgeted? What we got?
No,
here?
we've had the same rate. I have the contract coming due in November, I think it is. So we're probably going to have an increase there. It's just a matter of how cold and warm the summer is. Because we're using, you're using electricity, you're using gas,
All right,
you're
roger that.
using,
Yeah, and we all know, like, this year will be different, because
yeah,
whose electric bills when we were at 90+ degrees for a
Right.
couple of weeks? you know?
A
right.
couple of weeks, like a couple of months.
Yeah, see.
Okay. I have something on page 8. If anybody has 7, please stop me. I'm going to, for the people at home, to keep in sync. So I'm just going to pump it up one more time in terms of size. There's the 106 on vehicles, right, John?
Right.
In the encumbrances? Just to remind us that that's how we handled the vehicles. All right?
We approved it out of their existing line items.
Right, what we may have to do to cover that Amity thing, if he has labor this year that he hasn't used, we may have to use that
He might not
instead
get the
to keep
cars.
Right, to keep the budget in whole.
Okay. Boy, I'm not sure what that is. Sorry. Okay, on page 9, kind of towards the bottom, John, I noticed that the holiday pay one was a significant under, and I just don't know whether we budgeted too much or.
No, what it is, they budget for the holiday for everybody. Some of them
Yeah.
work, some of it take it off.
So if they work OT, they don't
Right,
get that.
right.
Okay.
So that changes every year too.
Okay.
Same with longevity.
Okay. Good.
Also, Jim, if you look on page 10 under Police Investigative Services,
I'm there.
there's a holiday pay, the very first line item with no budget against it. That money went in there by accident.
It's gotta be moved.
It was coded wrong. Well, we're not going to move it, but
Oh.
it goes against your surplus in the other area.
Okay. Okay. So that's
We're
good.
still picking up from our conversion little errors like that.
Okay. Roger that. And then the overtime of the dispatches was nil, right?
Yeah, all their overtime is going into their regular account right now.
Oh, okay.
They basically have 4 dispatchers, and they're all working overtime trying
Yep.
to
Okay.
keep the place going.
It just goes to regular salary line?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another one on the top of 12 team, electricity, once again, about lower than, for the volunteer fire department, for whatever it's worth, just curious.
Extra stuff to meter, right?
All right.
Is that meter read?
Public Works, I'm on 13 myself. In the middle of the page there, we have a couple of things, gasoline and diesel, we had favorable variances there, significant.
We had way lower prices than
Than
the
we
year
budgeted?
before. Yeah, because our budget was done before the bids went out that
Roger
year.
that.
We got gasoline at $1.75 a gallon
For how many years?
last year. One.
Just 1 year deal.
That's- We go out to, we go out
Jumping
to.
the gun there.
Don't worry,
You
we're gonna need it
You
all
knew.
the next year.
The next contract won't be like the 220 we're at now.
Okay, all right. So that's all I got on 13, T. All right, 14, just Donnie Fair. I could ask him, but, you're here.
Mechanics?
So we save in overtime, but we what do we got? A lot of sand and salt in inventory now?
No, we used it all. Our guys did most of the plowing last year. We didn't call in the contractors all that much.
And we didn't do much overtime.
No, we did overtime. We did
Not that much,
overtime.
about half.
Half, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's
There
surprising to me
if
that
you
we used
remember,
up
there wasn't-
all our raw
There
material.
wasn't too many snowstorms
Yeah, we had
last
two big
year
ones, that
either.
was it.
Well, that's my point. How did we use up all the sand and salt? I would figure they got some in inventory, no?
They drop it down like crazy.
Well, that would prove it.
Treated like Omaha Beach.
Okay.
Actually, it's not even sand anymore, it's just salt.
Yeah.
They use pure salt.
This one is in the Education of Gym Department on 15 at the top of the page, John, where we have, again, this is expenses. So bulky waste disposal. It's down, it's only, 20% savings, kind of, 20,000.
If you remember also, that's where the Board of Selectmen implemented a charge down
Correct.
there, and it's helped that quite a bit.
Is this expenses?
This is expensive.
Yeah.
This is expenses, but it cuts down on the tonnage going down there by charging.
Ah, and then that translates to expenses. Thank
Right.
you. Educating Jim, that's what I was thinking. Okay. All right, all right.
There may be some problems in that whole area this year. All those contracts were rebid out, and they came in at way higher prices, but
Us
it's
too.
too early to know what the problem's
It's
gonna be.
high, my friend.
I got one on 16.
The fuel component in the salary, the wage component is huge.
The what?
Yeah.
Fuel and wages is
Yeah.
all spiked.
Plus, they're shutting down some of these burn plants.
They're
too.
shutting
The
them down.
one in Hartford shut down. I don't know how long the one in Bridgeport's gonna go.
That's why the cost is going up.
Yeah,
Yeah, because then where you're transferring it to.
right. They put it on
Barges.
trailers and take it out to Ohio into landfills.
Okay, John, I'm on 16 now, and I notice 40,000 down near the bottom.
Yeah,
This is the library.
That's because the library was closed for a very long period of time. They
Thank
were
you.
only doing curbside pickup.
Okay. Remember, we're educating ourselves as well as the public here. So they're kind of seeing the detail. Not sure where next I would go. I'm up to 19, team, so I'll just go there and I can go back if you have one or two. Okay, on the bottom part of that, looks like school nursing. We got a positive variance of 12 and a negative variance of 9 and 31. Any thoughts on that, John?
Oh, they signed a new contract that gave them substantial wages, and
Okay.
I didn't put the money in there. I just didn't
Okay.
offset it.
Roger
It's
that.
just in the back.
It's in
going
the
to
negotiation for
right,
benefit
right,
reserve.
Right.
Okay, same thing on the top of the next page where we saw all of a sudden a budget of 25 went to a 49.
That's that grant.
That's that
we were
grant that he
talking about on the
gets.
revenue side.
Ah,
Yeah,
thank
we
you,
got
Kev.
that, yep.
Good catch.
And you'll see that in
Again,
the
you're
current
educating
budget
me.
too.
All right, good. Let's see, 21. I noticed the following. Let's see, I go past it. Somewhere in this page. I see a 44 and a 19 that caught my eye, John.
That position's open. The
The elderly.
Elderly.
elderly coordinator is
Okay.
Dennis Marsh, who's the acting community service director.
Okay,
So that still hasn't been filled.
Still hasn't.
And
And
the
if you
van-
remember, we took 22,000 out of it to pay for something else last year.
oh, so it started at 66.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because we
I
knew we
forget
weren't
what
going to
was.
use it. It was still
Right,
vacant.
right. I gave it to you guys for something that we needed to cover, either the chamber or something like that. I don't remember.
Oh, it might have been the one-time chamber.
Yeah.
You're right.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
How about the van drivers being
Again,
25% under?
those vans weren't on the road that much because of COVID.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, it's hard to, you gotta envision this time period we're dealing with again.
Right.
All right, heading into the home stretch here, page 22 in the employee benefits category. A lot of variances. I guess one that caught my eye was Social Security being 99. I would have expected that to be closer to budget, but just educate me.
No, because we have open positions during the year, especially in police. So you're not paying
So you're not-
Social Security or Medicare.
Okay, so
We
whenever we have open
budget,
positions.
we budget at
it'll go down.
100% of what the salaries
Yep.
are, and then if we don't pay them, we're,
Could be under all the time.
Well, you have to,
You're
otherwise you'd be way
You're
over.
under all the
Right,
time.
right.
Yeah.
What's the with comp premium that's minus 111, which means
Workers' comp premium.
it's under? No, it's
No,
over.
it's way over.
It's over.
So it's got
I
an
think
encumbrance there.
I think it's got
'cause of the
something to do with the encumbrance. When we actually close the year, I think that'll clear itself
No,
out.
sometimes the wording over here, because for some reason someone thinks that it's a great idea to give us a whole bunch of numbers, but they give us a limited distribution, limited number of spaces for the words. What does with comp hyphen premium mean?
Workman's comp premium.
Okay. I could have figured that out, I think. How about pension other being 155 under?
Pension other.
The last one on the
That-
category.
That's the 401A for the employees. Again, when the employees don't participate and we put it in the budget or they leave, we're not paying them their 10% or 12% match.
So this
on
is
that.
not what we put into the budget, or what comes out of the budget, what comes from the town. When we see Michelle every year come in and she says, okay, we're funding the pension 100%?
Different pension. This is the defined contribution.
This is our match on the people not in the old defined benefit
This
plan.
is the 401K.
Okay, thank you for that. I have like
What's the vesting?
2, 3 more.
6 years, I think.
6 years?
Yeah.
That's what we have.
I got page 20, yeah, recycling, special events, that must be the 200th,
That's the offset to the revenue on the other side.
Roger.
Yeah, because I had my question mark there to because I looked at this
Okay.
first and then I saw all right, there's
We're
revenue.
going to be in the negative there a little bit, but
Trying to buy something in?
yeah.
How many
But it's
times?
worth it. It's not a big negative. It's
No, not
Well
at
managed.
all. Not at all.
Okay, so that's how come you get to the point of 752,954. Some of the things that we just discussed here together, we get familiar with a little bit of the detail that adds it up. Everybody at home can see it as well.
okay.
By the way, the budget worksheets are going out this week to all departments for the new year.
Here we go. You're early, man.
It's going to be October soon. Ugh.
Oh,
Item
We'll have-
11, review
We'll have our-
revenue and expense reports through, I guess, a few days ago. But instead of going crazy with these, John, is there
Is there anything that
anything?
jumps out?
Jumps out. The only thing, like we already talked about, is our concern is, we're 493,000 short on the Amity surplus that we know of.
I mentioned that
Well,
we're
700
we're
on
gonna,
the line
we
item,
may have
right?
a problem
Right, but we got
with,
207 already.
with the waste disposal.
Yeah,
I give you that. And
That's a contract though, right? Comes up
Right.
annually?
no, I think it's 3 or 4
It's
years.
up this year?
No, we just bid it
Oh, you did?
last year for July 1 of 2022, so we're.
So we
in
we
the
don't have a
first year.
contract right now?
No, we have a contract now, but we didn't get the numbers until after our budget was done for this year.
Oh.
You'll see the new numbers in the new budget that are gonna be higher when
Yeah.
we do it.
It'll definitely be
But
higher.
we're gonna have some problems here with it too.
John,
So can we, for our next meeting, just like, all right, we got Amity, we got this, so we become aware of this as soon as possible? Because if we have to do anything, whatever that may be.
I think-
And I think it would
I
be,
think we gotta,
it would be less, be less
Yeah.
aggressive on what's going into capital and whatnot. going forward until we
and
get
what
through this year.
And what we spend on capital on any requests in the middle of the year, because there are a few things coming through. If you watched the Board of Selectmen meeting 2 months ago, there's 2 issues with drainage in this town.
Oh, massive.
And one
That's
is
scary.
One is going out to bid now, and they say to fix it is about $3 million. So somewhere that money's got to come from. And then I'm also having a problem with insurance on oil tanks here in the town. We have oil tanks that we're not using that are in the ground
Gotta
with
come
some
out.
oil in them. I can't get them insured anymore. They won't insure them. So we're getting prices, I'm pulling them out of the ground, and we're gonna have to do that, and I may come back to you for a capital request to get them out before the end of the year, before the ground freezes. If not, it'll be next spring, but we can't take the chance of leaving this stuff in the ground
How long they been there?
longer than I want to tell you.
You know,
And then I think what we have to do is we got to be candid. And I know the first selectman on down has special projects with some of this ARPA money. Guess what? It might not happen. Those might have to just be set aside if we got this $3 million issue.
All right.
Either that or that's a bond.
John, remember that
Because you're
Excel
not going to
sheet?
take 1 year of revenue, tax money, to pay $3 million. That's going to fix a street forever. You
No.
bond it over
No,
20
you
years,
can't.
or
You
we use,
can't.
we got to match the benefit there, and not.
Unfortunately, the interest rates on the bonds are going up.
I know.
right now,
Significantly.
too.
Bad.
I mean, we're not gonna
worse
get a
on
bond
bonds.
at under 1% anymore.
I like it, like.
No.
Well, 2 things, if I could, Kevin. Number 1, I reiterate what we showed before, and I'd be happy to look up where I had it. Remember that Excel sheet where we had all of the capital options, which included like Oakenquist, and then we had what level, what flavor, color of money are we going to pay for them, or even have a discussion of where it is. That's a great framework. Okay, great framework.
That flooding that's a
that
big concern.
thing we went through last year where the neighbors came in and talked about, has that gone forward at all?
That's
That's
what
the
we're
$3
talking
million.
about.
Oh, that's the $3 million.
Actually,
Yeah.
there's 2 $3 millions. There's I'll call it the A $3 million, and then there's a B $3 million out Derby Milford Roadway. That's a lot more complicated. So there's a $6 million in total in flooding projects.
So the gentleman and the families that were here.
That was only one group. There's another group out there, a different part of town.
Al Bucknell was the first group that came in.
Right.
'cause those
That's
pictures
Old
were
Country Road
terrifying.
and that area. Right. There's
But
another.
there's another section of town
there's
that's
another section of town.
it's as bad as that.
Yes, worse actually.
Isn't
Really?
there a plan?
And it's more complicated because it involves people's private residence. It involves the railroad cul-de-sac, and I believe St. Peter's Cemetery out that way.
Which streets are those,
Derby
John?
Milford Road.
Derby
Derby
Milford
Milford
Road.
Road, yeah.
Isn't there a plan to use ARPA funding?
Where
Some of it.
UNH
We don't have that
building
kind
is
of money.
heading out
You get
to Route 34.
We got 4 million. We used already $1.5 million
For what?
for paving last year.
The reason I asked that, Kevin, was Bob Reed, rest his soul. He lived on River Road. As a matter of fact, the family still lives there, Toots and all. His wife and Mickey, I should say. And it's a very little river, and it's down like 150 feet, and it's downhill, significant drop. When that river gets charging, it comes up the hill like big time.
Really?
Oh yeah. But everybody in the neighborhood knows it. But, and the other thing I want to
Parts of
ask
South
about this,
Greenbrier,
Kevin,
North Greenbrier were the same way. I don't know if they're still bad.
that's over by that
Well,
area.
that's
yeah.
the
Flood out.
Yeah, Derby Milford Road.
Yeah.
No, this is farther down, way farther down than that.
Up to more towards Derby.
Yeah, oh yeah. Like I said, over where St. Peter's
Oh yeah,
Cemetery
because
is.
the train trestle is almost in Derby.
And
So
it
is this
goes-
something that happened because something gave way, or has it always been this bad and nobody knew?
Well, it's been bad, but our rainstorms are getting worse. And some of these houses were built on, from my understanding, on land that you would never be able to even build on now because they'd be considered wetlands. They don't have basements because the water table is too low, too high. And they
Now,
got,
is that a state
they
road, Derby Milford Road?
No.
No.
It's all us.
You get no help.
But it goes up and back of there.
Yeah.
It starts from up the hill and comes floating down,
Like Rainbow Trail and all that up that way.
up in that
It's
area.
a big hill up there.
I mean, there was one person who left her house with her young baby, she claims, with water up to her waist as she was leaving. And she testified to that at one of the Board of Selectmen hearings.
Oh, I believe that, because person you know, and I know, down on Riverdale, that happened back in the 80s. I mean, they took a canoe to get him out. You know?
Yeah.
It's not funny, but everybody was okay, so I think
40
about it
years
because I
later,
was
it's
there,
fine.
you
It
know.
wasn't then.
Yeah.
No, that river came right up, and that whole dead end of that neighborhood,
Some of the
there was 6 feet of water in his basement.
Is that when Garcia Hill Road, the road collapsed? And,
Yes.
Yeah, that storm, yeah.
somebody actually died on the
Yeah.
bridge that collapsed there.
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
Some of these rivers, like Jim said, are very calm and collected, but you get a bad storm and they're raging.
John, I was looking for a former analysis I had done while you guys were chatting. I can't find it, but basically it comes down to this. How good is 52.4% in September of this time of year compared to other years? Same thing for I'm not asking for an answer, your gut, and then maybe we could, create some very simple standard work where we could compare those percentages at rough dates in time, right? This is the middle of September, so that we can have a reading on how we're doing, kind of like a tracker of how we're doing compared to historical. What's your gut telling you, though, for where we are?
I think we're good right now.
Okay, then I'm good on the revenue, Kevin.
Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, John, you put this document in front of us that's not on the agenda, so it's just for information?
I believe you all got it in an email from Mr. Hurley.
I did not.
Back in June.
Oh, maybe.
And he gave me a hard copy to give you, and we haven't met since then, and it's been cluttering up my office, and I'm trying to clean up, so I figured I'd give it to you guys.
All right, so
Like it was supposed to.
has the selectmen acted on this?
Yes, they have.
Well, how did
Did they approve or deny?
They approved not repaying taxpayers for under $10.
Okay.
And at Kevin's urging and my urging, they rejected his $25 request on the other way and put that at $10 also. Kevin and I had a conference or call about it, and we both felt $25 was
This, Kevin?
way
Yes.
too much.
Because we could all just short our current tax bills by $25. And you don't want to say people would do that, but
they would.
people would do that.
People are people, and,
Kid yourself. See how
You know, and all of a sudden it's like,
that's why you lock your car. I mean, really?
okay.
Right.
All right, then item 11.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Kevin. Is there a
Second.
second by Gene Kevin? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned at 8:53.
All right, I want to.
Seems like-
all early winter. If we have to put asphalt down, I hate having asphalt put down on any road in this town really after October 1st. It can be done.